Okay, let's see. Did I get everybody? Okay, here you come. Okay, great. Thank you all for joining us. Super excited to have introduce this panel. You guys will be speaking on enhancing adoption of 3D printing through innovative market strategy, and that is excellent. Cindy, are you moderating this panel for
Yes,
us?
I'm moderating this. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, first of all, welcome everyone. This is a section of marketing. We need to get a little bit more upbeat and exciting here. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be contributing to the TIPE for a second year in a row. And I'm so excited to have my fellow additive manufacturing brilliant marketer as a panel with me. So first of all, the topic is around enhancing the adoption through innovative marketing strategies. What does that mean? Before we go into the detail, let's go around the panelists and have everybody introduce themselves. I'm Cindy Dickey Wong, Global Head of Marketing and Customer Experience for Henkel Loctite in 3D printing. Very nice to meet you all. Stephanie, you want to take next?
Sure. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for having me. Stephanie Benight. I am founder, president, and principal scientist of Tactile Material Solutions. We are a consulting firm that focuses on polymer materials and supporting clients around issues related to those.
Thank you, Stephanie. Joy?
Sure. My name is Joyce Young. I'm head of marketing for Syrah Technologies. We have a mission to scale laser powder bed fusion to match the volumes and the price points of traditional manufacturing.
Thank you, Joyce. Abby?
Hello, my name's Abby. I am the marketing and communications manager for Exact Metal. We are a manufacturer of powder bed fusion printers, and our goal is to bring the price point down in that market so it's more accessible for more people.
All right, thank you. So let me start by bringing one information for 3D printing additive manufacturing. Our industry is actually not that old. We talk about 40 years plus, we're still in the early adoption of the technology overall. As a marketing, what is a question that you get all the time? What is a growth rate? What is a CAGR? And I give you the number. You love this. CAGR for additive manufacturing can be from 7% to above 30%. I'm representing photopolymer. The CAGR for photopolymer overall is about 24-25%. What does that really mean? It means that this technology is still very much in the early stage. That's why we as a marketing come in, right? It's important to understand the value proposition, the go-to-market, what is the business model, and how can we add values as a marketer to drive further growth, not just for the industry, but also for the value chain and ecosystem. With that, I actually want to open up the floor by reflecting the whole panelists here about what is your view for today's adoption in 3D printing, and how do you see the key challenge today? Anybody want to open up, Stephanie?
I'll start, sure. Yeah. So I think it's a really exciting time for 3D printing. And as someone who focuses on polymer 3D printing, I think there's definitely some really exciting case studies and use cases coming out. I very much agree with you, Cindy. I think it's still sort of, when we think about more advanced industries, more advanced materials, I think that it's still early on in early days, but more and more people are looking to 3D printing to supplement their current manufacturing methods. And I think there are slowly but surely more and more of those exciting manufacturing real world use cases coming about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the term use cases, right? I mean, we have so many cases within the industry around prototyping, production, industrial and use part. We use that term, on and on and on, but that's still a topic for today's. Abby, you have anything to add on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So metals are, I think they're a little bit behind. So we are now seeing the projected growth is around 18 to 20% around the market, which is really exciting. Powder bed fusion specifically is on the higher end because it's been around a little longer than some of the other technologies. And we're kind of seeing similar movement where now the thing that everyone wants is these case studies and a way to kind of spark creativity because people understand that you can make anything, like people say that, but okay, but what can we actually make? So to show people what is possible and what has been done is a huge challenge right now. And I think it's going to continue to push adoption the more that you can show people what's possible.
Joyce, you want to
Anyone
add anything? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think I have a different vantage point because when I joined additive manufacturing, it was in 2016, powder bed fusion. I thought it was crowded then, and it's a lot more crowded right now. I think we're definitely going to see a lot of consolidation. There's so many startups. I work for one of them. It'll be really interesting to see who's still left and who consolidates and continues to prove out their processes. But I think the real opportunity is I look at the total addressable market for metals fabrication, and we're not looking to displace other powder bed fusion processes. So I look at Abby, who represents Exact Metal. Abby is not my competitor. My competitor is casting and other traditional fabrication methods. And that's really where I think the market has to grow. We have to grow out of additive, find more use cases within traditional, and look to displace and become more competitive to those methods.
Yeah, I could not agree more. As a marketer, we get the question all the time when we start the project, the new product launch, etc. What is your business case? What is the total addressable market? What's the year-to-year growth? In 3D printing, it's all art, right? It's about assumption, it's about hypothesis. And, on top of that, Joyce, is that who are the real competitor? Are we talking about injection molding? Who are they? I don't think I think the cake is still very small. We cannot look at the industry, just the industry itself. We need to really stepping back as a marketing and say, hey, in this industrial footprint, who exactly we try to compete? Stephanie, you're not the head. I worked with you a long time ago at Origin. Go back with a competition, go back to the proof point around production, right? We really try to bring a case study, a use case around production. And we still, until today, I don't think we have a common ground. What's the definition of production? That is a piece I feel myself as a key challenges, right? When we claim the case study, we say this is a production use case. What the production really mean? Stephanie, would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. That was certainly, we talk about marketing and sort of methodologies and approaches, at Origin, that was certainly a very key word that we were using. And a lot of our collateral, a lot of our pictures, images, case studies were really focused on that, illustrating that there were production cases and not, say more consumer hobbyist cases or parts that you would print just at home. Every kind of the way that the collateral looked, the pictures, the imagery, it was all very targeted to that. And so I think, right now we're probably, if we're talking about, and I'm going to focus on polymers because that's what I know, we're probably looking at really mid-size production if we just sort of take a high-level view back and think, mass production versus mid-size production versus sort of prototyping. And I think, with the technology having improved when it comes to photopolymer printing, the materials having improved, we have materials that are on par with some of the injection molded plastics as far as properties and field use. I think that we're certainly headed in the right direction and expanding that. So I totally agree with you. It can be a little nebulous, but I think right now, probably around mid-size production is the most common as far as, real world use cases.
Yeah, definitely. How about from the metal side, Abby? You see the same thing?
Well, for Exact Metal, anyways, we see our clients our customers are on the lower end of budgets. So we're still kind of trying to show them what's possible because they haven't gotten into this upper echelon where they've already done the prototyping, they've already done
Mhm.
the R&D work. So we're still kind of bringing that back in. But what we found is that you have to show them what they can do, and then that learning curve, it takes up very quickly. So when we're looking at our industrial customers, if we start with the tooling aspect there, then within, a year, 2 years, they've already begun their production runs. Usually smaller pieces, like custom fixtures, things like that. But that has started to tick up. And as there's more like examples, then I think that people are becoming more interested and the word of mouth is starting to spread in that level, I guess, if you will.
I guess I'll hop in, Cindy, since you always save me for last. I think production is definitely growing, at least in my business. When we talk to end customers, they're starting to talk about it in terms of kilograms. So this is how many kilos we're going to be manufacturing. And again, when I think back to my experience back in 2016, it was all around pieces. We plan on manufacturing this many pieces of the part. And now we're talking about kilograms scaling up to hundreds of kilos. The appetite for our industry to mature is certainly there. We just have to prove it out.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with all of you. And I want to echo one word. Abby, you bring up about learning curve. This is also a piece, as again from the marketing angle, where even on the photopolymer side, we have to look at this piece, right? How do we educate our customer, our user, to understand the product and how to use it? Not just the product itself, but the end-to-end process, the workflow validation. So, I mean, the education, the learning curve come in as a part of key challenges as well. So I just want to echo that, Abby.
I'll
So,
jump in and add to that,
yeah.
Cindy, just because the workflow can be so important, especially for highly regulated industries like medical device, aerospace, and automotive. And that education piece, I've seen it firsthand where you have say an IFU, for example, for a medical device material, instructions for use, and you have customers that are not following that. And as you know, Cindy, you know this, somebody who works for a company that makes materials, you're very talented scientists in the lab and on your team are developing that material with a very specific process in mind so that you get the properties that it's been engineered to have. So, sort of deviating from that process can create issues with the material. And unfortunately, if not remedied, can potentially, once we do get to more of that mass production and infiltration of these 3D printed parts in the market, the things that Shay was talking about in the talk prior to this, that product liability, those issues, things like that. So the testing of the materials and also the education piece through what marketing teams can offer, and really making sure that you have really clear instructions, people are following them, your accounts managers are really checking in to make sure that those parts are being printed according to the intended procedures and therefore get the properties as intended. So important.
Definitely. Thank you for add on that, Stephanie. We spent a good amount of time sharing perspective around challenges. I'd like to pivot the discussion a little bit further to the key core of this panel around, let me ask in a different way. What's the marketing approach? Let's share. I mean, we all get into the industry long enough that let's talk about lesson and learn, right? If you can share what is key takeaway as a lesson and learn in the marketing in the past years that you see the change, the growth, the adoption within the technology. So maybe I start with Joyce then.
Oh, lessons learned. I would say what I've learned from working for several startups is our approach, our go-to-market for winning our first 10 customers is radically different than winning our next 100 customers. And I think we as marketing leaders have to be ready to pivot and be ready to scale when our business needs us to scale. I also, another thing is that, as I'm sure a lot of us, especially on this call, have worked for different additive companies. And sometimes it can be very tempting to kind of reuse and recycle different marketing strategies. Hey, it worked here, so I'm sure it's going to work there. And they're kind of, these two companies kind of, look and sound similar. So let's just reuse some of those strategic execution channels. And we really have to pause and think, is this really the right thing for our business, and not be lazy about it? And that's really easy to say, and that's extremely hard to do, not to reuse and recycle without really thinking critically about it. I'll stop there.
I mean, this is a very interesting point. Our customer, it depends on how we segment our customer, how we define the customer, right? It's so diverse. And one size in 3D printing especially doesn't fit all. I could not agree more, where we need to understand, first of all, what's the segmentation that we get on the audience, on the customer, on the user, and then how do we fit our go-to-market into that customer segmentation, so that we can be more profitable and grow in the way we want to. So the very interesting point, Joyce.
Yeah, I think the intention, right, of what your go-to-market strategy is and who you want to reach is so important. And I like how you distinguish between the first 10 customers and then the 10 to 100 plus after that. I think I've seen the mistake where, depending on the startup or founders or personalities, they'll want to get things out there, social media this, social media that, and post. And some of the things that I've worked with clients on, or having a more focused, intentional marketing strategy where you have key events that build a narrative and it's impactful. Not just, oh, we're going to be at this conference, or, oh, if the startup, we got this SBIR grant. And I think, really thinking about the message that those two strategies might convey. Oh, hey, company one, they just launched this really good partnership with this product already ready. Wow, they're ready for commercialization. They're ready for prime. Oh, they're going to be at a conference, or they just secured a grant. That's great for them, but are they really ready to, serve me as a customer? Are they really advanced enough to be sort of ready for commercialization? So really being intentional with that, and that's having a strategy, I think is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I will say I'm new to the industry, so I feel like I'm always learning. But since I've begun, I think that the biggest thing that I've learned is that you have to be very, very flexible, and just know that what people are talking about one day and your customers and the industry in general it can shift very quickly. So you have to be able to move with the tide, if you will. And I would say that that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned is it's good to have a strategy, but sometimes you do have to deviate once in a while. Come back to course eventually, but you can't be rigid in your ways.
I would add, Cindy, since you brought this up, Abby, one thing that I wish I had done sooner when I first started the industry was I wish I would have actively sought out a mentor outside of the company, but still within my industry. So you have people within your company that obviously help you on educating you on the industry and applications and so forth. But what really helped accelerate my growth was I asked somebody at one of our customer OEMs that was just very open to helping me on board and helping me learn. And that was a real game changer. And after 6 years, we're still in touch, and he still serves as a really amazing source of information for me, helps me think through things when I have questions. So yeah, I would offer that up as advice to anybody new to the industry or wants to grow quicker.
That's a good point. Then Stephanie, what is your lesson to learn?
Lesson learned. I think that's a great question. So I work with different clients in the industry, and given I have more of a technical background, but with sort of experience of launching different products, I sort of offer advice based on, the company, the personality, what they want to convey about materials specifically and the properties, what that type of literature should offer. But also, as somebody who has their own company, I've thought about different marketing strategies. And for me, being a consulting company, we've tried different LinkedIn, social media posts. I don't post on Facebook. That's not where my customers are. Thinking about what really is the best fit for not only my company, but also in the context of my clients. We touched on this a little bit earlier. If I'm working with a startup, suggesting that they print out mailers and put them under everyone's hotel door is probably not a suitable thing for them cost-wise, right? You have to think about budgets. You have to think about being the most effective with what you have to work with. And so my lesson learned is really trying to work with different clients and companies to communicate that. They may see very flashy marketing from somebody else, and maybe it's working really well for them, or big companies are pushing out a lot of different things very often. But there's ways to be effective, not necessarily flooding the bandwidth of your potential customers and networks. So, really trying to communicate that to clients is I would say a lesson learned.
Yeah, that's very resonate with my lesson and learn as well, Stephanie. I mean,
Okay.
our user base still very different, right? And the things I actually have 3 bullet point for a lesson and learn, but maybe I take the first one connected to you about the client. How do we connect it and learn and try to communicate? To me, it's all about the job to be done. When you look through your user, your customer, your audience, they all have a different. If you talk to the print technician, if you talk to service bureau, if you talk to the printer company, if you talk to a medical provider, they have a different requirement, of course. But then when you look at it again, put the marketing hat and say, what is exactly job to be done for them, right? Because as a marketing, especially in the early adoption, we all know that we should pivot less about product feature, but about product benefit, right? What is in it for them. So what I really learned is that understand the job to be done, the customer centricity, not from what we have, but from what they need. And I learned also that the products always come and goes, but the pain point is always there for us to solve. So that's for me, number one that I really learned is that I don't start from my product has a great elongation, tensile strength. We start from what exactly you need to get your job done during the printing time, or even in the service bureau. So that's kind of piece number one. Number two, I cannot live without my ecosystem partner. We as a material company, I can only be most expert in one thing. I'm expert in material. I cannot have a material to drive adoption. I need to look around the value chain and say, who else in the value chain that we have to partner with so that we can bring that total end-to-end into the market and solve customer problem, right? So I very much value the learning around ecosystem and also power of partnership. And last but not least for myself that I want to share is that as a marketing, we go back and we talked earlier about people ask all the time, what is your business case? The business case is what's on the paper, but as a marketing in the early adoption, it's our job to bring a leading indicator, to bring a small proof point or big proof point so that we can have that ability to walk the talk of that product and technology, right? Having a small leading indicator, number of the case study that show production case study, number of the repeatable order, even though it's a small volume, right? So number of the different application that we can penetrate and we can open up. Again, for me, that's the 3 things that I really see helping as a marketing approach in this early adoption. Job to be done, ecosystem and partnership, and small is a big win.
Yeah, Sydney, those are really good points. I mean, to your first one about pain points, it's interesting. I just talked to someone from a 3D printing company recently, and we were chatting at a conference, and he basically said, "Oh yeah, we just stopped sending spec sheets and said, okay, what are you looking for? Like, what issues are you having? Oh, try this material, try and test this material," instead of just giving and them looking at the typical property application or what are you trying to do? Well, try this one, tweak it there, or potentially improve the formulation based on your feedback in the testing that you're performing in-house. And I thought that was really interesting because so many customers are checking boxes and seeing what companies have the properties that are offered on the specification sheet. But in reality, like, well, try it, try the actual thing and tell us what you think, give us feedback and iterate with us on it. And I think that's very powerful. You know, they were able to kind of get pretty far with some customers using that approach.
Cindy, I want to go back to something that you said. What is the business case is what our business leaders always ask us. And I think our ability to storytell is really important. I strongly believe storytelling is a new currency, and we have to become really good at it. And we have to help our engineering and technical counterparts become really good at it too. And I actually just want to just share this book. I don't know if you can see it. All Marketers Are Liars by Seth Godin. I have read this book 8 times. And it continues to remind me the magnitude of influence and responsibility that we carry as marketers, and we have to do it responsibly. And one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't start reading leadership and business books early enough. I waited until my late 30s because up until then, I was too busy reading email, which is tragic, flawed thinking. And it's just stupid thinking. We should be investing in ourselves and helping ourselves expand and learn and be better and all that kind of stuff. I cannot recommend this enough for all marketers and anybody that values storytelling. It really, it reminds me why my career marketing is meaningful.
I would definitely get that.
I'm going to buy it for you.
Thank you. Abby, anything to add? We have a great discussion here. I really appreciate the exchange so far.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I'm going to get that book too. Yeah, for me, I know at least showing our best way to like prove it, like you were saying, instead of handing a data sheet and saying, okay, well, these are all of the options that you could possibly have. What we like to do when we meet customers or we're traveling, we ask them what they do, what their application is, what they think they're interested in, and then ask them to just send us a file and we can print it, send it to them, and then they can do their own testing and validation. And when they are holding the part and actually looking at it, that's when we're able to pull them back in. We do send some data along with it, like how long it took us to make it, about what the cost is going to be, including not even the machine, but the cost of labor or the the material cost, and then send them a template that they can fill that out themselves and let them do the deciding once they have an example, like a hard example in front of them. And that's how we've been able to pull customers in and keep them there.
Right, that's a good one. All right, so first of all, thanks all the panel sharing lesson and learn. I mean, it's not an easy things to do, but I think we're gonna leave enough time. I see Lindsay jumping in about Q&A.
Yeah, I wanted to just mention you guys have a ton of questions in the Q&A section. So, Cindy, do you want me to walk through those, or
Yes,
do you?
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So highest rated. How do you convince customers to participate in white papers and case studies? Anyone on the panel want to take that one? Yeah, please.
I think the best way to convince them is to develop a mutual value proposition. So I've worked with startups who are completely unproven. So why would a larger, more proven company want to partner up with my business? So we look for those use cases with smaller businesses who would appreciate a full-blown marketing PR campaign. So if you partner with us, we will make you the superhero of the story, is what I tell them. And that usually works out really well. So then we'll ask them, hey, what kind of, for example, publications would you like to be in? What kind of speaking engagements would you like to be featured at? Let's make it happen and use this case study as a feature point.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so important is identifying that mutual benefit between who you're working with, and even as a guiding principle for identifying partners. Are you aligned on the message that you want to deliver together? Um, Another strategy I've seen is putting it in the contract. If you're going to use our material, we have the right to issue a white paper or a case study on it. If this is really important to you, you may give other concessions in the contract to keep that, but I've certainly seen that before as well.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
There's also a question, what's the best way to educate customers with engineer to engineer talks, tours, customer testimonials, classroom work? What are some of the strategies that you've seen?
Yeah. Maybe let me jump in. I love this question, near and dear to my heart. Our industry, one thing that we all have in common, one thing, you walk the trade show, we have to touch and feel. We touch, we look, we see, and we smell. So the best way for education is start with the real printed part, and we
Mm.
work back on that education. How do we get there? How we make that workflow that make the part repeatable, right? Have that productivity around the parts. How do we make it work? How do we test them? For me, as a marketing, is always have a demo part. All the sales guy have a demo part in their pocket or their suit jacket, left or right. So that would be my take on this question.
Anyone want to add anything?
I think it goes back to kind of focus and, thinking about your customer. If you're going to offer a workshop at your company and getting everyone there, is that going to be effective? Maybe you have more of a complicated process. Maybe that's the best way to educate your customer. Maybe they're really needing specification sheets. And we talked about that earlier, information sheets on the material, or need to see examples. Maybe you want to focus your energy there. So I've seen different strategies, but I think it depends on the technology, and it depends on how complicated it might be to operate or use, and some other sort of nuances that way.
Good points. What are the biggest challenges, the biggest marketing challenges in additive manufacturing space?
Oh, that's a great one. I can take a stab at that. I think because there are so many players, because we have so many machine manufacturers, I think the biggest danger is not sounding like each other. So don't reuse and recycle without thinking a little bit, more critically about it. I think there's so much risk being vanilla and playing it safe. So I think the question was, what's the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is standing out.
Yeah. With additive marketing, or with the additive market becoming so saturated with similar technologies, how do you differentiate to customers your product for them? So how do you stand out?
Tell a better story.
Yeah, I would add that, Joyce, it's all about value proposition, right? How do we do the
Yes.
segmentation? Because again, the industry is so early. You can segment it from industrial, medical, or you can segment it from prototype, production. It depends on how you segment your application. And then you can link that to your end user, your customer. Is that segment by service bureau, or is it segment by what, right? So I think it's all about segmentation, and understand after the segmentation is done, what is your value proposition and go to market that serve on that application.
Yeah.
I think highlighting that differentiation, I mean, that's some of the biggest homework you have to do as a startup, is the differentiation of your product and company from others in the area, right? And then you want to highlight that in your marketing strategy, and also what you spend your funds on. What's going to make you competitive in the market, and what are those things you want to do? If you have the best software that has been ever associated with a 3D printer, then you want to highlight that, right? It seems obvious, but I've seen so many people, as to Joyce's point, see other marketing strategies, try to copy it, but really it's sort of hollow with why they're copying it, because it's not really working for them. It doesn't match their company, their product. So being
Totally.
intentional and really, understanding how you are differentiated, and then focusing on playing that up in your messaging is something to really think about.
How do you craft a good message that'll win customers?
We need a whole nother session for that, Lindsay.
I know, right?
This isn't content marketing. This is just marketing.
Maybe we can get into more in-depth conversations about that in the networking chat. You can find one of these women out there and really put them to challenge, unless you wanted to try and talk about
I just want to challenge. Yeah, maybe I can jump in. I like to ask back the audience who asked a question to ask two questions, right? What is important as a marketing fundamental 101? What business are we in and who are your customer? If you reflect that two questions, it's so simple, believe me. But when you're sitting down and put in the marketing plan, what business are we in and who are our customer? Answer that two questions, then you can circle back to that question as well.
Start there. Good advice.
I'll add one little thing to that. I mean, keep it short and keep it succinct. People's attention spans are short, and I've also worked with clients who are commercializing academic born technology. So many times they'll be like, okay, let's send this investor these PDFs of our papers. No. The investor doesn't want to click on a PDF, open it. They want to see the meat of what you're trying to convey, and maybe a figure, 2 bullet points, 3 bullet points max. I mean, really not letting your customer or making them do the work to understand what you're offering, making it very easy for them. So that they can see, walk away very quickly with whatever you've given them and understand what you're trying to accomplish and do.
How do your strategies adapt to customers outside the US?
That's a loaded question. Does the person want to be more specific?
In the meantime, I'll maybe just jump in, just assuming I understand the origin of the question and where we're coming from. But I think it ties back to focus, right? I mean, a lot of times if you're going to be marketing to different regions of the world, you're going to have to understand that customer, those regulations, how those regulations may be changing, maybe when it comes to materials. I know in Europe, for example, they are moving away from standard solvents that are used in the photopolymer process, photo initiators that are used in formulating those materials. And so that's a different market. And it's a different market that you have to educate yourself on, ask people about, and try to understand. And likely your marketing strategy in the US might not be as effective as in Asia or Europe.
Yeah, and remember, maybe one important question to ask even before that, can we source that product in that country?
Oh,
Most of the time when it comes to my marketing, I ask, are we selling this product or it's just advertisement? So, I mean, that's a very challenging question, but it's important to ask first.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a good one. What will be the indicators that we're past the early adopter stage? Who wants to take that one?
I think the simple answer would be sales. Are we selling? Are customers buying? There definitely has to be a financial upside as a leading indicator, but in addition to that, it's all the indicators of finding product market fit. So are people listening? Are they absorbing? If they're not buying, are they following? Those are the kinds of things I think about.
I love this question because this question make our marketing role is so important in the company. Because in the end, we are the one that influence the leading indicator. Of course, Joy, the top line growth, profitable is there, but it's in our hand, right? How many repeatable order? how many use case that it's developed in certain application ABC, how many product launch a year. Like this is a small thing that we can break it down to some tangible indicator, again, driven by marketing strategy.
I like
And
that.
it's no right or wrong. It's no right or wrong answer. It's all answer about it depends.
Yeah.
How do you increase awareness internally on the importance of marketing, especially in the face of the widespread layoffs?
I would say that would come from tracking, because if you can prove that you were the reason why you know a customer or why you were able to bring in a sale, then you can prove that you are necessary.
Anyone else
How many
want to
people
comment?
have? I have a poll. Can I ask a poll?
Yeah, I'll type one right here.
How many people have worked in organizations where people think marketing just make things pretty? I mean, that's the number one thing I have heard my entire marketing career. Like, we just make things look pretty or sound good, and it's so much more than that. How do you increase awareness inside the organization? You got to prove it. Prove that it's working. Put some points on the board, and that's hard, right? Because we're playing the long game as strategic leaders, but in the short term, we got to make some touchdowns. So, what are those touchdowns? And they're different across every business depending on your maturity, but that's how I think of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great answer, great response. How do you measure marketing effectiveness, and how do you decide budget allocation in which marketing channels to optimize ROI?
We need another chapter for this budget allocation. Actually, I can give some ballpark in general.
High level.
If you take a marketing class, in general, it depends on the stage, right? In the very early adoption, you can claim, hopefully your management buy into it, 5 to 7% of your target forecast top line growth, right? But when you start pivot from the early adoption into a little bit more on the scaling type of well-established business, it's all about 1.9, let's say 2% to 4% of the marketing spend according to your forecast of the top line sales.
Interesting. And then just a little housekeeping. You guys, you mentioned a book earlier, and some people in the audience missed it. They would love to get the name of the book right here, screenshot, and I'm going to put it in the chat here.
Seth Godin is a fantastic influencer to follow. I highly recommend all his books. He wrote Purple Cow, The Dip, so much amazing leadership advice, and what a fantastic window of wisdom.
How do you spell the last name?
Godin, Godin.
Excellent. Oh, and someone just posted the link right to Amazon, so you could just click and buy. Good advice. Thanks so much.
I wish
Good
I was
reference.
getting some licensing fees from this.
What are the latest marketing trends? Are we no longer bothering with newsletters? Do we invest heavily in social and video?
That depends on the business.
But for 3D printing, how to reach your audience? Number one for 3D printing, we did survey 2 years ago, LinkedIn. It's a number one platform that we use to communicate. Sometimes you see press release on LinkedIn, even before the press release channel of that company website. So don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn. Another trend coming, also might sound funny here, is TikTok.
Yes.
We will see more this year on our industry, how the TikTok play in. I think that's also need to pay more attention.
That's a valuable insight though, LinkedIn. I didn't know that. So interesting that you're running those surveys and looking at those stats. I have a minute if there's any final thoughts or final questions from the audience or from our panelists.
Can we do a part 2?
You should come back. We need to follow up. I think there's obviously a lot of interest, a lot of questions, and a lot of topics around marketing, right? So yes, please come back next year and do a part 2. I would love that. Question here, aren't there safety or security concerns with TikTok?
We need another chapter. Yeah, I mean, from the GDPR, I mean, yeah, there is a whole range of things you need to look at it and then verify according to your country regulation. But yes, short answer is yes.
Which probably plays into, we're going to have to see, right? How TikTok emerges in the landscape, right? There was a question. Yes, this will be recorded. This session will be recorded and available later on the YouTube channel. So if you missed anything, it will be there. Okay.
I
Thank
want to
you.
take
Yes.
opportunity. Yeah. So as a moderator, it's such a pleasure and grateful having all of you, Joyce, Stephanie, and Abby, and also Lindsay. Thank you for be a track lead here. It's a dynamic as a marketer, and it's an art as a marketer. It's a science as a marketer. So we are here to be a VIP